Hello and welcome to another episode of the Small Agency Talk Show. I'm Chip Griffin, and my panelist today is Brad Ferris with Anchor Advisors. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Hey, Thanks. Thanks for having me. So in addition, what else are you seeing that you think is not going back to the way it was before?
So I think one of the really interesting things is offices. And, I think that there are largely two extremes today. The folks who want to get back to their offices as quickly as they can, if they haven't already. And I know some agencies that have gone back to in-office. Or those who are like, screw it, I never need an office again. I can just save all that money on rent. And I don't think that either one is the answer. And this is, I've been beating this drum for the last 11 months, and I'll probably continue to beat it for a lot longer because I don't think this discussion is going away. Or it's not really even, it should be a discussion. I don't think it is enough because I think a lot of agencies don't realize how lives have changed such that neither extreme is practical. And we're going to have to be in some sort of hybrid environment for the foreseeable future. But to completely, the one that concerns me more is the ones who are completely writing off offices, because there's a lot of good talent out there that doesn't do well with work from home.
I agree. Yeah.
And the immediate one that always comes to mind is parents, but that's not the one that concerns me, because those are the scene. It's the people who are, single, have roommates, people who are of lower income and don't have a home office setup.
That's right.
Those are the people that I worry about, because they don't have a good environment in which to work. And so forcing them to work from a dining room table is not a good idea. And you're not going to keep the right talent.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I'm seeing also, is that I think there's going to be a role for the office as a place for people who don't want to work from home. And like, the office isn't going to be central the way it was before. And I don't see clients visiting us in the office very often either. Like, the office is just a place where people who don't have a good work from home setup can come and work. And like you said, I think it's people with young kids. It's people, entry level people, which for my clients, we have a lot of those, first 5 years out of college, people working for us. And they don't have a good work from home setup. So I do think there is going to be a mix for a long time.
Right. And so, I mean, on the clients visiting the agency, I think that's the silliest one that I usually hear. Because what I usually say to agencies that bring that up, I'm like, when was the last time you had a client come to your agency? Because I have to tell you, as someone who's worked in and around agencies for 25 years or more, I can probably count on one hand the number of times that clients came to us. Clients want you to go to them. I mean, even when I was, working for DCI, which is a very large agency, they had some clients who would come, but it was very rare. More often than not, we went to them. And that's how it is. So I think that's the silly argument. What worries me more is that people see getting rid of offices as a cost savings, because I don't think if you do remote work right, then it is not a huge cost savings. It may be a little one, although in some cases it may actually be a substantial cost increase. Again, if you're doing it right, because the thing is, once we get to the place where people can come together, if you've got a remote team, you still need to bring people together periodically. And if you've got a team that's spread out geographically, that can actually get to be quite costly. I mean, I worked in an international business, and so we would come together as an executive team 4 times a year. And the cost to do that was astronomical because we were flying people from all over the world. So you have to think through, yes, I'm going to save on rent, but you also need to budget in travel and hotel and meeting space and setting aside a time to bring the team together, because if you never see each other in person, that's not healthy either.
I also think we have to think about some sort of work at home allowance, when we bring new people on, to give them some money to buy furniture or to outfit their home office. And then on a monthly basis, if they're buying all their office supplies, their toner cartridges, they're paying for their phone and their internet and those kind of things, there's some ongoing expenses that I feel like it's not right to push that off onto the employee.
Oh, no, not at all. And you have to, I mean, you absolutely have to be investing in that sort of stuff. The other thing you have to keep in mind is it's not always practical, right? So sometimes money doesn't even solve the problem.
Sure. Right.
And the biggest one here is internet connections, right? There are a lot of people in the United States and elsewhere who do not have access to high quality internet, even if they have the money.
Yeah.
I mean, here where I live in New Hampshire, I'm fortunate I'm able to get gigabit Ethernet here in my house. But I have to tell you, even though I've got the gigabit internet, I still only have 40 megs up, which isn't a whole lot. I mean, it's honestly difficult to run a business where I do a lot of video content and things like that with just that amount, because uploading videos to a backup server or something like that takes forever.
For sure.
But there are a lot of people who aren't even that fortunate. I know people who have got just double digit megabits up and down. That's tough. I mean, particularly if you're doing more video, particularly if you're a tech business and a tech agency and doing a lot of that kind of stuff, it's hard. And so you need to be thinking about that as an agency. How practical is it to get your team what they need to be effective?
I think that David Baker threw a number out of, the average that he sees is that rent is about 6% of revenue. And so if we took that 6% of revenue and thought about how would we spend that same money to support our remote team, I think you could have a pretty healthy remote team setup and be cost neutral, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
And you do open up your potential employee base as you go to a fully remote. And to your point, there's also some people you're going to eliminate. And so, it's like anything else, is probably a trade-off. It's probably a trade-off.
Right. And the other thing I would add there is if you are casting that wider net, which I think is a good idea, you also have to be very conscious that you're dealing with your legal and tax people to make sure that you're addressing any additional issues you're creating for yourself by hiring people in other locations, because
that is hugely important.
Because it can create regulatory issues, it can create tax issues, it can create contractual issues. There's all sorts of things that doing that can do. So I'm not telling you not to do it. I've certainly done it, but it may mean you have to file some additional tax returns. Most times you don't actually end up paying net more in taxes, although it depends on the jurisdictions. Coming from a no income tax state, for me, it made some things interesting when I was running some of my businesses in multiple states. I had to be really careful to make sure I didn't do something where all of my income got taxed by another state, because that would not be a good thing.
Not a good thing.
Not a good thing. But generally speaking, it comes out in the wash for most businesses, except for the additional filing fees and things like that. So, but you need to look at that and you need to be aware of it. And if you're looking at international hires, you need to think about that. And these days you have to be really careful with contractors. I mean, particularly California is brutal now with contractors, although they went from being tough to super tough to then they threw it all in a blender and created a whole bunch of exceptions, and nobody really knows what the heck's going on there anymore. So,
and New York and Illinois are right behind them. So
and most states are pushing on this. I mean, it's because states get revenue from having employees more easily than they do as contractors. So, it's certainly something that you need to be aware of, but it does open those doors. I agree with you. If you were to take your rent savings and put that into investing in the team dynamic in various ways, I think that would be a healthy thing to do. But, what I more often see is people saying, I can save $5,000 a month in rent, and I'd be like, great. Except that's not the reality. It's just, you should be shifting that budget.
That's right. That's right.